Hello, interwebs. We're back with At the Movies. It's me, it's Statto, and it's our special guest, Lon Chaney. Oh no, wait a minute, it's Charlie's London after midnight. Trying to fool us here, where you, Charlie's? Welcome aboard.
That sounds like the R-rated version of my book, doesn't it? It's like the over 18s version. Charlie's London after midnight, for anyone that doesn't know the reference.
Yeah, we need to get Statto to do with the drawings with the big teeth.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Okay, so yeah, welcome aboard, everybody. Who have we got so far in here? We've got, yes, Dave's been here for ages. Hey, Dave. Mm-hmm. Who's that in there? I recognise that person.
I don't know.
And there's People Circus. Having a wee laugh. Thanks, guys. So tonight's show, At the Movies, it's all about Alfred Hitchcock, The Silent Years. So we have, of course, the UK's resident expert on all things silent.
The girl that don't stop talking.
Charlie's London, and we're going to be talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Silent Years. I usually ask Statto what he's drinking. What are you drinking tonight, Statto?
I'm drinking more of that crap.
More of that crap. There we go.
Flavored water.
I'm on a girly drink. I'm drinking Chardonnay.
Oh, I'm drinking Coke Zero because I'm
polar opposites. You're somewhere in the middle.
Coke Zero. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, so we're here to talk about Alfred Hitchcock's Silent Years. Yeah. Charlie.
Yes.
So yours. Over to you.
Over to you.
Over to me. My first encounter with silent Hitchcock was Blackmail. I saw it about 5 years ago. It had just been restored at the BFI, and it was absolutely stunning. It had very classic. It was very film noir. It was Hitchcock had filmed it on location in London, so it had a beautiful. Really, it's a great historical piece for anybody that's either interested in London history, silent cinema, or just film locations, because film locations in themselves have got a really big following. Also, just from, like I say, a historical point of view of what the streets of London at that time looked like, it was absolutely fantastic. Just a fantastic film. The lighting is superb. You really start to see this is where Hitchcock is playing around with the close-up shots and the long shots and things that he's very famous for, the suspense. And considering that so much of what Hitchcock does work in dialogue a lot of the time, he was talking about, he was handling silent cinema very much the way that he would handle his talkies later on, and there was still the same dialogue of suspense in there. So it's an absolutely fantastic film.
He did say something along the lines of it being the purest form of cinema, didn't he?
He did.
Silent movies.
He did indeed. Yeah. I mean, 1929 is, I believe, is Blackmail. But it's a late film for the silent cinema. I mean, silent cinema was actually clawing on. I mean, Chaplin at this time was still clawing on to trying to keep the tramp relevant and make silent films. A lot of people were already starting to play around with talkies. So, I mean, it's on the top 100 best British films of all time, Blackmail. I think it's in the 50s, 56 or 50, 59, I think it is. 59. Right. So,
it's one of those things, though, isn't it? I suppose suspense is something you can still do silently. As long as you've got orchestrated the music properly for whoever's playing it.
Sometimes better, yeah.
The showing, you can really kind of wrap up suspense in a way that there's limitations with the comedy, because once the talkies came in, people could actually hear jokes and hear gags.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. Well, I mean, Statto, what do you think about this one?
I didn't get a chance to see it. I read the synopsis, and it sounds like another great Hitchcock. I've seen a bunch of like the talkie Hitchcock stuff. Not as much are up on the silent stuff. I got to read a few. Couldn't find too many prints of like just to watch it, and I read a few synopsises for like the Lodge or the Ring, Pleasure Garden. This one wasn't on the card, and I missed it in my research, but it looks interesting. This is kind of like kind of some of the same stuff he'd kind of go on to do in his talkies, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, there's a whole scene in Blackmail that happens in a telephone booth, and the minute that you see it, you go, "It's the Birds,"
right?
You know, like it is the Birds. So it is very interesting, and of course, like I said to you, you get to see parts of London that it wasn't in a set on a set. It was genuinely they were allowed to film there. You know, Scotland Yard, for example, there was a whole chase scene that ends up at the British Museum. So from just a point of view of being able to, and he in this film, it's quite well known for having incredibly long panoramic shots of the riverfront, which again, something that wasn't really done. What you have to remember as well is British silent cinema was way behind American silent cinema. So it was one of the reasons why this film is brilliant, in the fact that where it's filmed on location, because they couldn't afford to have these big studios, a lot of silent cinema and early British cinema, probably up until the end of the Second World War, is filmed on location. They would literally say to somebody, "I'll pay you 10 bob if we can borrow your house for the week," and film it. And that still happens, believe it or not, on British television. There are dramas that are on British television where they will say, "We will pay you X, Y, and Z to use your house." I mean, there's a famous TV series over here called, I don't know if you guys get it in the States, called Midsummer Murders, but it's like imagine a cross between Murder, She Wrote and Downton Abbey, right? It's like that. And it's filmed in a real village, and all the houses are real. So it's still a trend in British TV and cinema that you film on traditional location. Back when Hitchcock was making films, it was much more about the fact they couldn't afford anything else. Now it's more authentic.
Yeah, and the size of the cemetery in Midsummer Murders is huge.
Yes, because and the mortgage prices are really low.
Totally. but yeah, Bristolian Dave was saying that he hasn't actually seen a silent movie. This is an interesting one because they made a talkie version of it for release in Europe. So it was made as a silent movie, but then because they did that at that time, they were taking movies that were silent. They thought, how can we change these and make them? It's a bit like making a movie, a 3D movie today that wasn't made in 3D. They were taking them, and so this is one of the first kind of situations where they took a silent movie and they kind of like tried to make a talkie version of it as well. Yeah. As it says in this poster, the first full-length all-talkie film made in Great Britain, which is not strictly true.
And interestingly, the silent version is actually shorter. Now you would assume that the silent version would be longer because you would have to portray and convey more of that story with visuals. However, the talkie version is longer. Talkie version is longer by about 9 minutes.
You got to give those actors time to do their pauses.
Yeah, and everybody had to enunciate back
Am
then.
I really that much of a nerd that I know the difference between that 9 minutes is the difference between these two films?
That's just passion.
Yeah, that's it.
Out more.
That's not been that's been a nerd. Yeah, you're right. I need to watch this again. I haven't seen this I don't think I've seen this in about 20 years. So I've not seen the remastered release. So I need to have a look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful. One thing I'll say as well that's was really pushing the envelope for the time was obviously that there's a female in this that commits murder, and she commits murder with a knife. And like traditionally, like a bread knife, she picks up a bread knife and kills someone. And traditionally, women poison and they shoot. They don't tend to. Even it was known by the police back then in 1929. Women were famous for poisoning and things like that. They didn't. It was getting blood on your hands as a woman was not something that psychologically happened with murder. So the fact that Hitchcock is pushing this boundary and showing this character as murdering somebody with a knife, and also using again the great sort of different angles and the suspense, the close-up shots of the faces, all these things. He was using it even back then, and he was terrifying the audience with stuff that they weren't comfortable with.
Yeah, he always had this thing as well, putting strong female characters in his movies. I mean, I guess part of that is because putting them into a situation where they were being terrorized was more frightening for the audience, you know, with a female character. But they also, in their own right, tended to be good kind of roles and kind of strong female roles for the decades that he was working in. So he did kind of like break the mold quite a bit in the way that he used females in his movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I did a wee bit of a deep dive beforehand, and I tried to watch some of his first movies. I tried to watch this, and I thought, I'm going to enjoy that. It's a 1920s movie about showgirls. What's not to love about that? Quite a lot, it turns out. It's very hard going.
Did you prefer Dracula to Istanbul to this?
The kind of Dracula in Istanbul is actually a lot more fun than Hitchcock's The Pleasure Garden, I have to say. One showgirl goes a long way in that movie compared to the ones in this film. So, I mean, I haven't seen it all the way through because I couldn't. Have you seen this all the way through, Charlie?
I have a while ago. I mean, it's like I used to, you know, before COVID and when I had a life away from work, I used to go to a lot of silent films festivals, and this was one of them that was there. It's technically very good, but I'm very much like you. I did sort of walk out feeling a bit okay. It was a bit like that. It was mixed in your traditional sort of look of Hitchcock with like a sexual undertone. There was a bit of voyeurism going on. I mean, he very much plays with the idea of the sexual politics, but yeah, it's weird. I think he was trying something different, and I think that fantastic that he did, but it didn't quite feel like a Hitchcock to me.
No, well, I suppose this was his first full silent movie, wasn't it? I think he was developing a movie that never got actually made. But yeah, it doesn't feel like a Hitchcock.
So it's kind of like a pre-Royal Tenenbaums for Wes Anderson or something before he really nailed down what it was he was doing, trying to figure out who he was. Yeah,
I suppose that's kind of what it is. I think it's very much a film where somebody's learning their craft or kind of like finding their feet with everything. I don't know. It's an odd film, but I thought I'd get your take on it, Charlie. So it was not just me then.
No, and what's interesting about The Pleasure Garden is if you think about the era of cinema at that time, you had there was a lot of sexual scandals in Hollywood. Not so much over here, but there was definitely the idea of what the paparazzi was and the limited limitations to to tabloid journalism. You very much you get that in The Pleasure Garden. There is this idea of playing around with these different connotations and these innuendos. I mean, the name in itself, The Pleasure Garden, you know, there's he's very clever in what he's actually doing. But like you say, it's another early one. I think it was 26, The Pleasure
25.
Garden.
25, 26, yeah. Sometimes there's always that wee bit of nobody's quite sure with some of these movies, and there's the year they were made and the year they were released. It tends to get mixed up. But yeah, it's worth noticing and talking about. It might be just the kind of movie some people want to watch of an evening.
He also does something very clever with this film and another one called Downhill, which was made in 1927. It was very common in the silent cinema to use different tones of put different filters on the lenses to create the effect of outside, inside, and night and day. And he does this in the Pleasure Garden. But interestingly, that wasn't him trying to get into Hollywood and show that he's got the credentials for Hollywood. That was because he did a lot of very early training and very early sort of his influences very much came from like Germany and Fritz Lang and like, you know, Metropolis and all these things, and you see that in his early silent stuff as well.
Which perfectly leads us on to this one, which is The Lodger, which I think this is where you see kind of pure Hitchcock being born, I think. And again, he's got like Ivor Novello in The Lodger. Ivor Novello, who is quite a striking kind of leading man, actually, especially with the black eye makeup that they all had in the silent movies. And this is kind of like is he or is he not a serial killer type movie?
It's this is another one that's really interesting because that's my saying, but it's really interesting. It's all really interesting, but Hitchcock was born in Hackney in East London. Okay. Right around the corner from where Hitchcock was born was Whitechapel, which is very obviously Whitechapel is probably most famous for Jack the Ripper, as well as being one of the cheapest places you can buy on a Monopoly board. But and it really is. But little tip for you: Park Lane and Mayfair are right on the edges of the Monopoly board, the same as Whitechapel and Old Kent Road are. You always buy Old Kent Road and Whitechapel because you end up landing on them more. So over the long term, you get more moolah. Anyway, I'm going off the point. What I was trying to get at, sorry, I don't know why I said that. What I was trying it's weirdo. It's such a
got to replay a Monopoly, or is she just taking more digs at the area?
No.
Hang on, I want to play the old bit. I'm having the old bit.
All right then. Okay, cool. I'll be the iron.
Yeah.
Stop it.
What I was about to say is that he would have grown up very familiar with the tale and the legend of Jack the Ripper. It would have been something that would have been passed down then by about 40 years. I think isn't not Blackmail, sorry, The Lodger, isn't it like 29?
29, I think.
Yeah. So it's exactly 41 years after Jack the Ripper. So there would have been people that would have been around that would have known, like would have remembered this. So it would have definitely resonated with the area, and it was a thing of legend. So he would have been able to take that and use that for this film. It's also probably the premise for Norman Bates. I'd say that, the Lodger itself, Lodger, Bates Motel, that idea of somebody being there that shouldn't be there. But also, it's very much the first step that would become Lon Chaney's London After Midnight, because London After Midnight is rumoured to have also been based on the murders of Jack the Ripper. So with all these sort of things coming together, it's incredibly interesting. Also, technically, people don't know this, but there's a lot of very blurred shots that they're not really blurred; they're just slightly off focus, but they're done with a very soft lighting. And do you know how Hitchcock created that illusion? He put Vaseline on the lens. That's how he did it. He put Vaseline on the lens. So he was playing around with all these different technical ideas. I mean, I'd put 100%. I'd put Alfred Hitchcock methodically and mechanically in the way that he directed these films, very much in line with Buster Keaton. Because people don't realise that Buster Keaton, he wanted to be an engineer and he never quite was able to become an engineer. And one of the things that he transferred that engineering skill into was how he orchestrated his stunts, and all those sorts of things. And Buster Keaton was incredibly gifted as someone that done that. And you can see the same ideas and styles used in the early Hitchcock as well. So it's quite interesting that one's a silent comedy, one is silent noir, but they actually have very similar cinematic. Now I've gone from being a nerd to an academic, and I'm not sure which one I prefer.
No, it's great. Keep going.
People mentioned the poster. It wouldn't be Saul Bass because it's 1929, and it's very much a Bauhaus-inspired poster. So again, this is probably the one film that you already mentioned with the German expressionists. This is the one film that I think they are at the forefront with the style of this movie. It's not 100% the same kind of approach in the way that he frames the films, but definitely with the lighting and some of the techniques he uses, you can see the German influence on it.
Yeah, and you can see in the pictures there, you've got at the bottom to be the night, isn't it? And he conveys that. fantastic. I mean, the Hitchcock, the silent stuff has been all, it's been all restored by the BFI, and the prints are absolutely, they are sensational. I believe the silent stuff is owned now by the BFI.
Oh.
I believe it is. I mean, they also own the Mutual and the SNA chaplains. So when you know the BFI has got their hands on something, you feel very safe that they're going to look after it, because their restoration team is impeccable. I actually know someone that works at their restoration team, and the what they have to do is insane. And equally, there is a fantastic silent film historian called Kevin Brownlow, and he's very famous for restoring Napoleon, and it took him 30 years to do it. And that is another masterpiece of this era as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if that means a lot of his public domain type silent movies are going to kind of vanish off and be like sort of given the Criterion Collection treatment.
I'm in favour of them not being public domain, and I will tell you why. One, they end up using the wrong frame rate. Often with silent films, they use the wrong frame rate. They always put rubbishy music over the top, and because they don't have the money to restore them properly, they're crackly, they're tinny, they're too fast, and they just look rubbish. Whereas if you give them to a company, yes, you're going to have to pay 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds or dollars for the box set. But you either do that, or you end up with a situation like Lon Chaney, London After Midnight, where there's no copies left anymore, and we have no idea what happened to it. The amount of silent films that don't exist anymore because they were made with nitrate film and just went up in smoke, and that was the only copy left. You know, we want this stuff to be looked after, especially Hitchcock.
Well, that and some of these movies, like you watch the thing in the public domain set where you pay like $10 or something like that for 20 movies, and like there are whole scenes that are so foggy and dark that you can't really even make it out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Some of Chaplin's stuff in my set, it's kind of like that, where you're looking at it and you just really have to squint to see what's happening.
I mean, the other thing that you could find yourself in a situation, because I went to a silent film festival once and we watched this film, and I come out and it was a very early Greta Garbo film. And I came out, I was with two of my friends. It was like 11 o'clock at night. It was in Italy. And I was with Chaplin's biographer, and he looked really annoyed. And I was like, what's wrong? And he went, they played it at the wrong speed. It's 3 hours, 15 minutes we were in there. And I was like, what do you mean we played at the wrong speed? Like, are you trying to tell me that was too fast? And he went, no, they played it at double speed down. So it should have been about an hour and a half, and they played it too slow. And we were all in there for double the amount of time. And nobody cottoned on because it was a melodrama. They thought it was meant to be that slow with really long pauses. Yeah, that was something.
So
it's not just, Mark with the...
No.
Double speed in everything.
but I would like to say, though, that as far as the public domain thing goes, I'm kind of torn with that, because I agree that you should have like a proper kind of like restoration that's paid for and so on, But at the same time, me and Statto would never have been able to sit and watch Dracula in Istanbul if not for the wonders of public domain.
That means I want public domain to end now.
Yeah, we're going to have a short break in the proceedings, just to bring this up and have a wee looky.
Thank you, sponsor.
Yeah, never word. Yeah, from our sponsor. Of course, will be a silent word.
Yeah, how can I successfully promote a silent film and not talk about it? Well, I will say, I personally feel this campaign speaks for itself. The art is on point. It's officially licensed.
6 days.
Yeah, 6 days. It's gone so quick. Like, I can't believe how quick it's gone. I feel like I've been talking about this book for ages. It launched, and then I am going to go in demand. So even after that, people, will still be able to buy it. Nothing will come off of the campaign after, when it goes in demand. Everything that's on there now is on there now. I am trying to get some extra bits and pieces on that will go on after the campaign, like when it goes in demand, but they're not going to be anything that would stop you backing it now. They're not going to be any packages. They're going to be simply individual things. Like I'm trying to see about getting a t-shirt done. I'd like to do a making of book because I've actually got a lot of Mickey's rough sketches and what they turn into, like the concept of product of the book. And I just think just seeing them come to life, from the pictures we were allowed to use in the archive to his original sketches to what they became, I think people would love that. And I'd really like to see that process in the works as well. So we'll have a see if that's going to be something that we can do. But yeah, other than I'm proud of both of you. You've both worked on this campaign. You've done so much. I mean, I genuinely can't thank anybody enough who's backed it, who's worked on it, even people that have sent a tweet, people that have just linked it, sent it on. You've done your part, and that means more to me than anything, because, we live in a world where money's tight. You just sharing that to someone else that could see it is enough. It really, really is. I can't say anymore. But that page there you just went by is just insane. And of course, look there, it's got the official stamp of approval.
Officially licensed by the chap.
Which means not public domain.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 100% not public domain. Believe me, if it was public domain, I would have done this ages ago, because I wouldn't have gone through the wrangling of proving this product should exist. So it's definitely not public domain.
Yeah, people seem to think because something's past a certain age, it must be in public domain, but no.
No, it can maintain that copyright.
Yep, exactly.
Otherwise, Mickey would have been public domain by now, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you actually you read the disclaimer from the chaplains, the what do you call it? It actually says it's from 1918 to present day, so it's from literally the minute he started his own studio.
Mm-hmm. Just the Keystone stuff, right? But...
yeah. So the Keystone, the Mutual, the SNA, that's not even public domain. That's owned in the States. It's owned by Criterion. It was owned by Park Circus and MK2. Now, and over here, it's pretty much the BFI. The BFI are the be all and end all of what is going on with them. All my sets are BFI.
I suppose I don't see too many of those sets they used to have, like with all the Keystone shorts and stuff anymore. Around 2004 is when I bought mine.
And Keystones, Cops is an interesting one, because that's always played at the wrong speed. People always think that that's meant to be really, really fast. And if you get a proper Criterion copy where they've all been digitally remastered, they're not that fast at all.
This isn't like Benny Hill. What the heck?
I wonder if that's where Benny Hill got the idea. He saw the ones at the wrong speed. Because Wullie, I mean, you know that with the famous First World War song, "Keep the Home Fires Burning."
Yep.
That was not ever meant to be that slow. Someone on an organ played it too slow, and people started preferring the slow version. It was meant to be a fast, weary song. So this show.
Yep, it went from uplifting to crying in your tea.
Yeah,
exactly. I think because whenever they showed the Keystone Cops or Harold Lloyd or any of that stuff on TV when I was a kid, it always seemed to be at the wrong speed. It always seemed to be, undercranked. And that's probably exactly why Benny Hill did that. He would know his stuff. He probably knew that was the case as well. So he played up in that. I think his stuff was even more fast than the Keystone Cops at the wrong speed.
Well, it works when things are sped up. It's usually really funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I sometimes I do that on purpose with certain videos. I just watch them at high speed just to see what happens, and I always make myself laugh, and then I tell myself off for being such a child. So,
I mean, I gotta imagine if you sped Baby Yoda up, it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Wullie won't agree with that.
In a blender. Yep. Full speed. Turn it up to 3. Forget that. Turn it to 11.
Oh,
Right.
no.
This one goes to 11.
But yeah, great campaign. If anybody hasn't already
Oh yeah.
had a look at it, have a look at it. Back it. I'm working on it. Statto's working on it. But that's not reason enough for you to back it. But it is an incredibly good campaign. Mickey's artwork is amazing. And I've read some of Charlie's work as well. It's all amazing too. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Wullie.
Back it, share it, do whatever you can to help if you can't back it. And give this one a look as well. It's awfully good. Okay, so do that when you're at it. Right.
No. Been up there a bit longer, you.
Oh, they see it all the time. All the time. That's all they ever see. Elsa bleeding dark again.
Yes, again.
There you go. I wish I guess it's double speed in volume 2. Oh dear. Oh. If you haven't already read their book that they wrote a few years back, you should read that. It's an interesting read. The Crankies. Right, okay. When last we were here, we were talking about a fairly good Hitchcock film, early film, The Lodger.
Yeah.
Kind of peters out towards the end, kind of chicken out towards the end, I think. But it's a good film. We're not spoil it, but it's a good film. What else have I got here that I thought was worth looking at? This again is another one that I couldn't finish.
It's another hard one.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
So this one's actually difficult virtue.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's thematically it's all really good, and it's a no coward. So I imagine the play is probably quite good. But the problem with no coward is I don't think he translates that well to silent cinema because it's all about the dialogue and the words, isn't it?
I'll be honest, I've got a bit of a crush on Noel Coward.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Does he know about it?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He would have never looked at me.
I'm getting the Ouija board. I'm got a board out and I'm going to ask him.
He would have I definitely think I was the wrong sex for Noel Coward. But he was. He produced some amazing works. And Easy Virtue, yeah, I don't think he reminds me very much of sort of Oscar Wilde in the way that he wrote plays, and I don't really feel that Oscar Wilde translates well to the big screen as well as I've seen plays of Oscar Wilde in the West End, and I feel that Noel Coward is exactly the same. I feel that he doesn't, and where he's witty. And the same way that Oscar Wilde was witty, that you've not only got that it doesn't translate well from a stage to the screen, you've equally got that someone that's very witty and intellectually clever in the words doesn't translate well to titles and a silent film. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I can see why Hitchcock would be attracted to it though, because he had a kind of wicked sense of humour as well. And I can see why you'd be attracted to it. But yeah, it's one. If anybody's got the time and want to check it out, it can start us out okay, but it just becomes a bit of a dodge again.
There's an interesting thing that goes on with Hitchcock here as well, and I think it's quite telling of his personality. Because later on in Hollywood, you heard all these stories about how he treated his leading ladies, like there was quite a lot of harassment and those sorts of things that went on. And interestingly, the women that he looks at a lot of the time in this is fallen women. Like the woman in Easy Virtue, she's how she's been shunned by society because she's a divorcee. Then you've got the I think is it Alice in Blackmail, I believe it's she, and the woman that stabs the man with the bread knife, she's a bit of a character like that. Then you've got Jill in The Pleasure Garden. She's another one that he plays around with this idea of the fallen woman. I mean, don't get me wrong, for Hollywood that was quite popular, but I think it's also something quite telling about how maybe he sees women, especially you think about the roles. Look at the Mother Bates character. You know, the mummy issue sort of thing. There's an interesting theme going on here.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think in some cases the women in the silent movie seem stronger. But Yeah,
because they're putting up with a bunch of crap.
Yeah, but I think that's just. I think it basically just comes down to the fact that he wanted us to feel something for the lead character all the time, and felt that females physically, when are put in danger, that there's more danger there. There's more danger evident. I think it was the old horror movie trope. You're going to be more scared for what's going to happen to the female character when she walks out on her own and leaves the party, than you are if it's Charles Bronson that's walking out leaving the party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree, actually. That's a very good point.
Talking about Charles Bronson, who's this guy here? Yeah, again, I've not seen this, but I really want to see it now because I was looking at some of the images of it, and this is one that he wrote as well as directed. The Ring. And if you look at some of the images, they're not that far from like a proto Raging Bull. They're really not. They're very much kind of like they have that. Yeah, of course, the guy's got lipstick eye makeup on. Everybody does in these old silent movies, but they look very much like he's actually trying to get across the feel of an actual boxing ring and the people that would be around the ring. It seems to me to be quite an interesting movie. So, have you seen this one, Charlie?
Yeah, and what's very interesting about this one is the Ring is 1927, and Chaplin's City Lights is 31. So you would automatically assume that Chaplin stole this from Hitchcock. But actually, it's based on The Champion, which is a Chaplin short, which was made in 1915. So they all took things from each other, and contrary to what many people will believe, they didn't steal them from each other. They homaged each other. So they would take it, but then they'd add something else, and they'd give it back. And then that one would take that, add something else. And that's very much what happened. You can do a map almost of silent cinema of who's taking it. And as Hitchcock has proven here, you can take something that's a comedy and turn it into something quite serious, which is what he does. But I think it's more connected, like you say, to Raging Bull than it would be to a silent comedy. But cinematically, there are very much, I mean, if you were to look at that and look at images from City Lights, it's virtually like some of the shots are shot by shot the same.
Right.
I think this is one of the ones I do remember looking at these pictures. I do remember seeing a long time ago. This is the one with the lady kind of going between the two boxers. And then he challenges him for basically the lady at the end of the day, and he has to work himself kind of back up. It almost reminds me a lot of, one of my favorite movies, City for Conquest. Very similar movie. Very similar movie to that.
Right. Okay. It's becoming even more interesting to me now. This one, I'm definitely going to have to get. BFI, this is one of the ones that they've restored as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to have to get a look at that and check it out.
I'm sure there's a BFI set, Wullie. I'll have a look for you. I'm sure there's a BFI set. I mean, I deliberated for so long on what Hitchcock set to get, and I got one, and it's the box is shaped like Bates Motel, and it's got holographic windows, and when you move them, birds fly across the holographic windows, and when you open it up, it's got North by Northwest, the birds, Psycho. It's got all the classics, but it's very, very hard to know which Hitchcock set to get, because some are owned by this company, some are owned by that, and you can't get them all your favourites on one box set.
No, that's the thing, because you've got to get the ones that are owned by are owned by MGM, Warner Brothers, are on the one box set, and then you've got the Paramount ones that are on the box set, and then you've got the ones that are like the kind of oddities that are kind of like flying out there that are now owned by a completely different distributor, so you're just buying them one at a time. That's what I've been doing recently. I've been restocking my Blu-rays, replacing my old DVDs with Blu-rays, and I've been getting the HMV collection's got a few of the ones that you can't get in the box sets.
Oh, me too. It drives my wife nuts. We have these movies.
And for some reason, you just can't get a good copy of Rebecca anywhere.
No, you can't. That's actually very true. You can't get a good copy of that, because I've looked.
Yeah, every few months I have a wee look and see if somebody's bringing it out. I know. If only they would just release them all, they'd just get together like they did for the recent Jason movies and have one box set with all of them in it.
Mm.
Well, that Jason went from Paramount to New Line, sold the entire thing. New Line had made 3.
Yeah.
So at that point, they were able to sell all of them. If somebody sold all Hitchcock's, well, geez, I wonder because Hitchcock he did.
Well, no, it wasn't quite as easy as that because they hadn't sold them the rights to all the characters, just to like Camp Crystal Lake and Jason, I think it was, wasn't it? So
well, there was a lawsuit with the writer of the first one. So any assets from the first one, namely Crystal Lake, Jason Voorhees' name, and I want to say there was something else because he felt he didn't get paid right, so they went to court on that.
Yeah.
So they could make another Jason movie. They just can't use his name, the name Crystal Lake.
It's all weird, but they managed to at least get together to release them all in a box set.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have that problem with the Planet of the Apes movies because they were all owned by the one company. So
it's all Fox. Well, Disney now.
Oh God, don't remind me. That's all the silent movies I've created cards for. There was another couple that he'd made, wasn't there? And there's one missing. One of his early ones is gone. It must have gone up with smoke, like you were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, this is the whole problem with nitrate film was the temperature in those boxes only had to go up 10 degrees and it could set on fire. It was highly flammable. Whole theaters destroyed as well as whatever was in them. So it's one of the reasons, sadly, why so many of these films don't survive. I mean, it's also another reason why you've got to look at Chaplin as being a genius, because he was one of the early people to realise that you should move on to celluloid and not use nitrate. When he built his own studio, he decided he was going to use celluloid because he was too scared about it going up in flames. And it's one of the reasons why they not only all survive, but it's easier to restore them. Because the problem with the nitrate is that if you run it through the machines at a high temperature, it can explode as well.
Now, was that losing that movie part of that big fire from MGM in the 50s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's destroyed so much.
I'm sure I saw that in something else as well. I'm sure they used that in a movie. I'm racking my brain trying to think what I saw it in. I don't know if it was a movie or a Columbo. Yeah, it could have been a Columbo.
So what else have you got, Wullie? You run out the silent ones. Where are we going now?
I thought that it would be interesting because he did make films that worked as silent movies with a lot of his talkies, and he made one twice, and that was The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Yeah, Stewart.
People still kind of would argue over which version is the better version, the original, which is an early kind of talkie, could work quite easily as a silent movie, or the remake.
Stewart got along that well, if I remember right.
He's not an actor's director though. He was the kind of director who loved the planning stages, and then when you turned up and said you just made it, because he was very big on storyboard and getting everything worked out beforehand, and he was very much a believer that the motivation for the actors is their job, just getting to the part and just do it.
Stewart always seemed kind of miscast, especially in Rope. That would have been a great one for Cary Grant.
Yeah. But being Stewart, he's always good, even when he's miscast. So it has that kind of strange quality about it.
Of course, Stewart would have been great in Arsenic and Old Lace, but either way.
He did more. He did quite a few Hitchcocks, didn't he?
He did 4 or 5, or 3 or 4 at least.
Yeah, well, his best is Rear Window by far, and Vertical. So those two are the two that I think are his best, and he's cast perfectly in them there because he has it plays upon the kind of like the qualities that he had in his 50s westerns with Ordinary Man, but it was that kind of like anguished character, some kind of dark past, and you can see that in Vertical, and you can see as well in Rear Window a man who's constricted by his situation, a man of action who's kind of like can't get into action. It's all there, and
there were some great quiet sequences in Rear Window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them here. Yeah. Rear Window is almost like a silent movie at times.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's got, again, something I think that comes from the silent movies that he did. He's got that subjective eye. So we don't see the action and then see the characters react to it. We see the action through the eyes of the characters. And Hitchcock does this all the time. The kind of subjective treatment, he called it. Whereas we see James Stewart looking at what's happening in the building across from him. And then we see that action, and we're seeing it through his eyes. And then we return and we see his reaction to it. So it puts us into his position. So we become voyeurs, and we're in the same kind of situation as the characters in the movie. So we can sometimes feel a bit guilty because we're like them. It's something that works. Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's such a simple thing to do. And Hitchcock was a master at it. I think it was Francois Truffaut said that was the one thing he learned from Hitchcock, the subjective treatment.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen Hitchcock work with Chaplin on Monsieur Verdoux. I would have. I mean, that's such an underrated. My mum hates Monsieur Verdoux, but it's because it's purely because it's not your traditional Chaplin film. I love it because it's not. But I would have loved to have seen what someone like Hitchcock. I would have liked to have seen what Hitchcock would have done directing Chaplin rather than Chaplin directing himself.
You don't think that the egos would have clashed?
Oh, 100% they would have done, but that would have made for a better film. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'd actually got it finished.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
No. I don't think they would have got it started, to be honest with you. I think even the planning stages, they would have been bumping heads, because I imagine the director writer side of Chaplin would not connect particularly well with Hitchcock.
No, I think you're very, very right there. But I just think that that film's great, but the one thing it lacks is being completely dark. And I think that Hitchcock would have done that, would have made it darker than it. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it is quite dark in places, but I think that Hitchcock would have added an extra something that wasn't there.
Yeah.
He would have changed the humor up probably a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that the pressure cooker or the pressure, valve would go off every once in a while.
Yeah, he definitely would have.
Like the house care person in Rear Window. She was always cracking jokes and stuff. Everything else was serious. She was there for jokes.
Yeah. But she also, she served the purpose of that, and also kind of like she was the viewer's other kind of eyes, as well. It was her connection to kind of the real world, as it were, because it's such a manipulative and fake movie. If you actually just start to dissect it, but it works. I'm going to go back to the Lodger a second, because I've got Psycho up there, because one thing I noticed watching the Lodger was it's almost like a prototype Psycho, with this scene where she's in the bath.
Oh, yeah.
And he's outside the door, and it's kind of like, and you think, is he going to go in? And it's kind of like it's playing up on the kind of vulnerability there.
It sounds more like a Norman Bates moment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of like, that's almost like a prototype for, what he eventually ends up doing in the more permissive 60s with the shower sequence in Psycho, because the shower sequence was never in the actual book that it was based on. So that was kind of like him and Saul Bass concocted that together.
Yeah. I have to say, I went to Universal Studios in Florida when I was a kid, and even from a kid, I loved Hitchcock. I had a very unusual grandmother who would let me read the newspaper from a very early age and let me watch things that maybe I shouldn't have done. And Hitchcock was one of them, and especially Psycho. I was allowed to watch Psycho from a very early age, which was quite funny. But what I remember seeing was there was a whole Hitchcock section in Universal Studios where they talked about his the filmmaking process, and they went through how he does the shower scene. Like, it was part of the thing that they showed you. Where they had an actress that got in a booth and recreated it and so on. And it's fascinating how he was able to do that. To this day, watching that film, I still can't get my head around how he got his head around filming that sequence. Yeah.
It's just all perfect planning, pre-production. Saul Bass was an incredibly good designer as well.
Mm-hmm.
People give Saul Bass, or like to give him all the credit for that scene, but that's not fair, because if you've seen any of the work he's directed himself, he's no Hitchcock. So I think that was very much a collaborative process between him and Hitchcock to get that whole shower sequence working.
Some people are better idea men than anything else.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because that's why you've got certain people in the industry that will do the storyboarding, certain people that will do the script writing, and other people just get in front of the camera and know what to do, either behind it or in front of it. And I think Hitchcock was definitely one of them, and one of the first people to do the whole cameo thing, wasn't he? To do the cameos in so many of his own films.
That's right. Yep.
Well, being a gag man,
from the silent days on.
Did he do them in the silent movies?
He did. He started doing them, and it wasn't in all of them, but I'm pretty sure he started doing them in the silent movies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember which one, but I do remember reading it at some point somewhere. I'm not going to bother.
Blackmail. It was blackmail.
Was it blackmail?
I feel like it was. I feel like when I went.
Was he a journalist or something, or a newspaper person?
I think he is, because I'm sure when I went to see it at the BFI, they said that if you look closer, you'll see a cameo of the man himself. I'm sure.
There you go. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it definitely. You're right. I think it was blackmail, if I remember rightly.
You know what that reminds me? Was it 2 months ago? You said you were watching Charlie North by Northwest for the first time. What'd you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was. I don't know how that one slipped through the cracks for me, because I've seen so many Hitchcock films, but I just never seen it. And it's one of Jan's favourites. I just think, it's not Jimmy Stewart who's the lead in that, is it?
Cary Grant.
Cary Grant. That's it. And I remember watching it going. I actually said right in front of him, I said, "Why do men not look like this anymore?" And he was like, "Oh, thanks." But what I meant was like I will say, my other half is a very snappy dresser when he's not in his engineering gear. But men just don't tend to, like, when you look at Cary Grant, and I think he was in his 50s when that film was made. He looked incredible, even when he was like the running scenes and when he gets out the shower. Like, men looked after themselves a lot more then than I think a lot do now. And it's just a beautiful film, right from the cast to the cinematography. It's a fantastic film, and it's clever as well, and quite sexual when you think of when it was made.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Yes, there's a there's a train going through a tunnel at one point, isn't there? So that says it all.
Yeah.
It's subtlety. He was going for the joke as well, wasn't he? He didn't really care about the subtlety.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that's another thing because people would have sat there watching it going, "Did he just?"
Yeah.
And just and what did I? And of course, you wouldn't have. The joke would have very much been on you, and Hitchcock would have known this, because people would have been scared to say, "Hang on, is that meant to look like X, Y, and Z?" Because then someone would turn around and say, "You've got a dirty mind."
Well, I think that was his approach for the censor, wasn't it? Because the censor would look at that and go, "Hang on a minute," but then they'd have to stop and think. It's just a train going through a tunnel at the end of the day. So they would, we'll just let it go. We'll just let it pass.
I'd like to see him re-release the Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Oh yeah,
I would really like to get a copy of that. Like, that's not out of print and massively expensive or something, but.
It would be massively expensive, I think, when they first bring it out, but give it a year or two to bring it in price.
Right.
Yeah. But North by Northwest, I'm surprised you've just seen that, because it was at a certain point it was never off the BBC. But
I'm not actually sure it was the first time. I feel like when we sat down and watched it, I really felt like it was the first time. But when I said that to my mum, she went, "Of course you've seen that film." I think it was one of them ones that is on so much.
It's on, yeah.
It's in the background, you forget. Like I think that I can't imagine, knowing how much I watch films and how from an early age I've watched so many old classic films. I don't imagine I hadn't watched it. But the one that sticks in my head the most is Rear Window. I think Rear Window is fantastic. Yeah, look, Rear Window and Psycho, definitely my favourite. Yeah, 100% Pete. Fantastic films. Weirdly, I didn't mind the remake of Psycho. It was never going to be the original. but I didn't think that it played. I think it paid a pretty decent homage to. It didn't try to do anything outlandish and, like try to be something that it wasn't, or make it edgy or give it this new spin. It pretty much recreated the film frame by frame.
Yeah, I think that was people's problem with it.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
It was like there's nothing different.
Right, well,
just remaster the old one and bring it into theaters.
Well, Peephole's just said he thought that it was amazing. I don't know if he's trolling me now. Right?
I think I'm hoping he's trolling you, to be honest. That's like, you've left me speechless now, Charlie.
Yeah, but Charlie, did you see any of the Psycho sequels?
Yeah, and I'll be honest. Like, there's one that I remember watching when I was younger, where his wife is pregnant and he like goes completely mad because he thinks that now he's scared of her having the baby because she thinks it's going to grow up to be like him.
That's gotta be the third one.
And it goes back and it looks at his childhood growing up.
That's the fourth.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, and it had Olivia Hussey in it playing his mum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I didn't think that one was too bad.
They're not horrible.
I'll be honest, they're all not bad. They've all got something. They've all got something good for. The second one's probably the first sequel's probably the best as an overall movie, but they've all got something going for them. They're definitely all worth watching. Yeah.
If they were to remake them, who would you have to play Norman Bates? Because that's my one problem with the Vince Vaughn one. He goes on to be a comedy actor, and he's known as being a comedy actor. And I didn't think he was the right casting for Norman Bates.
Well, they kind of did with the series with Freddie Highmore.
Yes.
Did you see that at all?
Yeah, no. Well, I'll be honest. That and Hannibal came out at the same time, and the problem I had with both of them was they didn't fit in the timeline. So they restarted it. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't. I saw a couple of episodes. And I wasn't really feeling it. But then I thought the guy that played him was very, very good because you could see he was this very happy-go-lucky boy that was just going to descend into madness.
It took 5 seasons to get that done.
Yeah, that's the problem. That was a long descent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
they added a lot of stuff.
Popular,
It was Psycho for CW.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. No. I don't know. Who I'd cast? I'm trying to think if there's anybody. The problem is nowadays you don't have actors like Anthony Perkins.
I'd get somebody unknown.
Yeah, it would need to be somebody that's just goes out for comes up at the casting and is a complete unknown, like you say. I can't think of anybody.
What's the problem with celebrity, isn't it? Like you cast like Henry Cavill or something. It's like, Superman's playing Norman Bates this time around or something like that. Yeah. Usually they bring back it.
Actually, I'd quite like to see that version. the Snyder cut of Psycho. That I would pay good money for. That would be so funny.
Release the Bates cut.
Yeah. What was the name of your old mother? Martha.
Oh my God.
Can you say that name?
Can you imagine if there was a director's cut and it was called the Master Bates cut? That'd be really that'd be really bad. Can you imagine the advertising poster? Oh, geez, no.
Coming soon from Pugwash Videos.
I'm actually crying here.
It sounds like a bootleg one at a bootleg table or something like that.
See, I'd throw a curveball and I'd cast someone like Daniel Radcliffe. Because actually, I think that he's been desperate to do a serious film for a long time. He's been He's
Harry Potter.
Yeah, the actor that played Harry Potter. But
you know him from the Lady in Black.
Yeah, the Lady.
That was a good film. Yeah. I'm just trolling you.
I know. But he's been in The Woman in Black. He's been in. There was another one that was to do with the devil. Was it Kill Your Darlings or something?
Horns.
Oh, that Horns, that's the one. Obvious blooming name. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, film about the devil called Horns. But what I'm saying is he's been very, he wants to do that sort of film. That's obviously where his passion lies. He's apparently a very attentive person when filming, like, you know, that he gets to know the character. He spends a decent amount of time on. He's a method actor as well. I have a funny feeling someone like him would probably have a high amount of respect for someone like Hitchcock and would do it right. And the thing with Norman Bates, which people don't realise, is he's meant to be quite charismatic, quite good looking. Like, he could easily have, like, he's very Jeffrey Dahmer like. Is it Jeffrey Dahmer? No, is it? No, not Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh, what's his name? The one that was it that they've just made the film about with it's not Jeffrey Dahmer. The one that's really good looking.
Yeah, the good looking one. Oh, yeah.
You know who I'm.
I know who you mean. Yeah, I'm never very good at.
No,
Rupert Grint would probably be the better choice of the two Harry Potter guys for Norman Bates, because he pulls off like kind of dumb likable better.
I see. I always thought that Norman Bates was meant to have been that he was quite charismatic, good looking.
I'm going to throw you a curveball here and say, why couldn't it be Norma Bates?
What, and have daddy issues?
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop that, really.
That's what I would do, because then you're coming at it from a whole. There you go, Ted Bundy. It's just as well, because I always think it's Al Bundy.
That's what I was trying to think. What an idiot!
I know. What we like.
This guy, has Daniel Radcliffe done a lot of like normal movies? Because I mean, I'm thinking like he's done like Guns Akimbo and Horns and all these. I'm trying to think of some like just regular movies he's done.
Women in Black is a bit the most.
Well, that's a period piece in a horror movie. I'm talking just like some sort of a, I don't know, romantic comedy or just regular drama. Has he done a ton of those?
I thought he done, Kill Your Darlings. Isn't that now? But the other one that I don't know if you guys in the States got it. What we got it over here, and it's fantastic. Is a film called My Boy Jack, where he plays Rudyard Kipling's son, who was killed in the First World War. And that's very good. I mean, seriously, anyone ever says that he can't act, I always post them in the direction of that film, because that film is incredible. But it was a TV drama. It was a 2-part TV drama, which is, you know, I'm pretty sure it is on YouTube, so you can watch it. But it's that's why I think that he could do something like that, because he's quite versatile. But I am in very much the opinion, like you guys, gives it to someone unknown. Yeah.
Or my preferred option is just don't make it again.
Yeah.
You know, I'm with that, Pippin. Just don't make it again. Whenever they try to do it, like with Casablanca or any classic movie, they just kind of screw it up. Unless it's an adaptation of a book, you know, you want to bring something else to it, then that's fine. But
it seems to get a past adaptations, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. One thing that was interesting is like North by Northwest, to bring it back to that one, has a lot of sequences that are silent movie sequences. The crop duster sequence, for instance, for the most of that doesn't even have any music in it. So when he comes out and says that, because he was always quite flip sometimes in interviews, and he would say things just to get a laugh, Hitchcock. But when he does come out and say it's the purest form of cinema, I think he truly meant that when he was talking about cinema and silent cinema.
I haven't seen Marine. Is that any good?
Marnie.
Marnie, yeah. Marine.
Marnie's terrific. Yeah. Well, some people think otherwise. I think it's a terrific movie. I really like it.
I like Marnie. I like Marnie because it's basically got what I consider to be 1960s pornography in it.
Yeah. Well, the French poster is that sequence there, but it's got Sean Connery. It's a painted poster, Sean Connery ripping her nightdress off, because the French were playing up the salacious aspects of the movie. But I'm just making it even. Statto want to see even more here. But
my first Sean Connery movie was like, what was it? It was Darby O'Gill, and then I followed it up with like James Bond and stuff.
This ain't no Darby O'Gill.
I just have one problem with the poster of Marnie, and it's always the same problem because of the font that they use. I just see Marmite. The word Marmite. That's all I see.
Marmite. The movie.
But it kind of is, because some people really don't like it at all.
It's a suspenseful sex mystery, Marmite.
Yeah, it's a very it's him at his most melodramatic, and I kind of like that. So
Yeah, me too. To be honest, I like it, but then I like it because it's got Sean Connery in. It's in the 60s. He looks as hot as hell. What's there not to like?
That's still a wig, right?
pretty much. Yep, he had a wig from day one when he first born. Yeah.
Oh, he didn't in Darby O'Gill. I think it was still just really thin. No, maybe he
No,
did there
I think
too.
he's always had. Yeah,
He lost to like 21.
Yeah, he was one of these actors that he didn't let it. He didn't mind that people knew that he wore one either.
Of course, his wigs would have cost more than I make in like 4 years, or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
Nice wigs.
It shows you how bad everybody else's rug was back in the day. That his was so good.
But he could like do the Lego hair thing.
Yeah,
put it right on.
Exactly. You know, see when he goes out of the water, and then you can see just how bald he is.
Oh yeah, that's what was it? You Only Live Twice, when he's swimming in the water and it looks like his head's doing like a Muppet jump.
Yeah, then Thunderball.
all I could see, and that's where Blu-ray fails me. Oh.
I didn't know he wore wigs. I actually didn't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, from pretty much an early age he wore wigs, because if you watch him in that, if you've ever seen the documentary made about the shipyards in Scotland, and he's bald. It's like, and that was like back at the time when in every movie he made, he had hair. He didn't care though when he made that documentary.
Class, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So where to now then? I think that's all the slides I've got here. Hitchcock. What about? I mean, we've looked at all these silent movies and so on, but there are some Hitchcock imitators out there, or some proteges. Like Brian De Palma, for instance, who I think is terrific, who very much homages Hitchcock. But can you see that there's actually going to be anybody like Hitchcock in cinema again? Because I personally don't think there would be.
No.
Well, not as long as there's on-the-nose writing like there has been. He always did everything in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if there is going to be somebody like him again, it's going to be, the closest is probably Christopher Nolan, not in style, but in their approach to cinema.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, no. Woolie's onto something here, and actually, it's in also Wullie in style. Because if you've seen 1917, those long shots and the single shot sequences, very Hitchcock.
Right.
I have that. I haven't watched it yet. I bought a bunch of war movies during Black
Was that
Friday.
Christopher? I thought that was Sam Mendes.
Oh, ball.
Yeah.
It is Sam Mendes.
You're thinking of Dunkirk because he made Dunkirk.
I'm thinking of Dunkirk, but they both did that. But then, actually, no, they both did that. But I'm thinking of Dunkirk. And Dunkirk, the suspense. Yes, Wullie.
I think so. I think because there's an influence as well for a lot of these 60s movies, like the Bond movies and so on as well. But I think he's the only person that makes movies right now where when you stop and you think back, you think about the storyline and the plot, it all starts to fall apart. But when you're watching it, it's perfect.
Well, I think part of that was just the fact that he was riding his camera at that point. Those things were huge, those Technicolor cameras.
Yeah.
You didn't have a choice.
Music as well. Christopher Nolan does the same thing that Hitchcock used to do. You think of the shower scene from Psycho, and then think of the scene in Dunkirk where they're all trying to get out of that boat that's been hit, and it's got that real droning music that makes you feel suffocated. It's a very, I can see. And also you think of like the Dark Knight films that are very noir. You think about Blackmail, and you think about The Lodger, the close-up of the eyes. Oh, think about as well the blackened out round of the eyes of Batman with the blackened out eyes of how the silent cinema were. I think I'm with Wullie with this.
Yeah, I think his Joker as well, Heath Ledger Joker, also harkens back to London After Midnight. There you go.
And The Laughing Man.
Oh, aye, yeah. Right, okay, we'll convince you yet, Statto. We're going to do a show with just me and Charlie, bring up all the comparisons between Hitchcock and Christopher Nolan.
They both wore suits.
Both English. Right, okay, well that's us pretty much covered everything for tonight. That was a good show. That was fun.
That was fun.
I enjoyed that.
Myself. Thanks for having me.
Oh, cheers, Charlie. That was good
thanks
fun.
for coming on.
Yeah, it's always good. This is the second show you've been on with us. Last time was less
Halloween.
distinguished. Yeah, Michael Myers' Halloween show.
A lot like Hitchcock, that Myers.
Yeah, definitely. A lot like Hitchcock. Before we go, though, I'm going to stop sharing. This is where I stop sharing the screen. Bring something else up, and then I have to do it again. Okay? So talk amongst yourselves.
Statto, no one's actually spoken today about your avatar.
No, it's subtle, isn't it?
Very subtle. You showed me in a DM, and I was like, "Yes, I love it. It's incredible. Yes. Oh, yeah. There he is.
That's brilliant.
There he is. I love it. He showed me yesterday, and I was like, "That is." And what I love is that he thought to make it that way, but he's got a confession to make though, Wullie. He's got an addiction to avatars at the moment.
Yeah, I saw that.
He also puts them on a spreadsheet in alphabetical order. So there's something going on here.
Yeah, I totally get that. I like that. I could see it. It's like this amazing contact sheet of avatars.
We've been running for 11 weeks, and I've had an avatar for every one of them. Also, there was like 10 or 15 came out of the Saturday show. That's where I kept on switching them.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Well, you had about 10 or 18 in just one show, as far as I can remember.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Well, Star Wars.
Star Wars had 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah. But a quick diverse into the mighty Ales of Dark Fables and Bampots. It's on Indiegogo, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know what it is, check it out. Links in the description down below. It's awfully good. Meanwhile, in the streets of London, we have Charlie's London from East Lane to the Limelight. There's 6 days left on this. It's going like gangbusters. So it's a terrific.
Isn't the issue where he fights Godzilla?
Well,
there will be. Yeah, there will be.
Well,
it's the $1 million stretch goal. He's going to fight Godzilla.
I do keep mentioning stuff like that. You see, I'm working right now. I'm lettering all my pages before they go on, and I've just about got them all lettered and laid out. And there is a fantastic Kirby-like double-page spread with a dinosaur. You're going to love it.
Yes, dinosaur.
He's in his giant turkey suit from the Gold Rush.
But you can see how amazing this looks.
Beautiful.
I'm very lucky because we've already started talking about book 2, and book 2's gonna. So where the first one
is that going to be the Wrath of Stan?
Yeah, Stan.
Charlie too. Charlie harder.
Where this one looks at the First World War, the Second World War will be in the second one. And so the Great Dictator will be in the second one. And what's we've sort of formulated between us is this is another reason why it's important to have a license, because I'm going to be able to use the speech from the Great Dictator, and I'll be able to use it, in its entirety.
Oh, cool.
As something in there. And you would. I mean, I didn't know this till recently, but that speech in itself has its own copyright.
Oh, wow.
Right. Wow.
Because it's used on so many things, and because it's it's got its own cult following, that I had to make sure that was okay to use in itself, because so many other companies will use it and they put it on T-shirts and this sort of thing. So it's to make sure it doesn't infringe any other form of copyright.
Well, that's going to make it special. Just I only know of one other comic to use a famous political speech, and that was New Frontier. Darwin Cook used the Kennedy speech at the end.
Yep. So I'm hoping to do something quite. I've got some ideas for how I want that to look. I think I want it to go over a double-page spread, and it be, I'd like to sort of do it so it was like the middle of the book, so that when you open it, it's got. But that's a long way off. It's just me playing around with ideas right now. That is a way off.
Excited already.
Cool.
Oh,
well, if you're in the chat or you're watching this on replay and you haven't already given it a look, give it a look.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. It really does.
Especially because we want to get the book to Planet of the Apes.
Well, no, technically, there will be monkeys in the second book. There will be because we'll look at the circus.
You have Wullie's attention.
Yeah. If they're not talking, at least have them riding bicycles.
Well, they'll be climbing all over him while he's on a tightrope.
I love that scene.
Yeah,
so
brilliant.
That'll do.
I've got one of those photographs you get when you were like a kid and you went to the seaside. You know, they used to get your photograph taken by a monkey.
Oh yeah,
that's how old I am.
I think I got one with a tarantula when I went to London Zoo.
Right, that's not quite the same thing. Was the tarantula wearing a wee jumper? Because the monkey was. I'll need to dig that for you. Right. On that note, monkey business. Thank you very much, Charlie, for joining us for our 11th episode of Wullie and Statto at the movies. You'd almost think I planned this because earlier on tonight we had the 12th episode of Comic Book Gold. And next week we're going to have the 12th episode of At the Movies as well. And that's going to break them up as two nice 12-episode seasons. And they'll take a wee break over Christmas and the New Year.
Over 22 weeks already?
Yeah.
More about it because we also watched Dracula in Istanbul.
Yeah.
Wow.
Still one of our most popular videos. I don't know what that says.
People like pain.
They do. I enjoyed that episode, even though the movie went on too long. It was a fun episode. But we'll be back next week, and we're going to be doing this.
Oh.
So
Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter.
So both Statto and myself are going to come with our 5 favourite Christmas films, or our top 5 Christmas films. And the criteria for this is either it's a movie set at Christmas, so it's a Christmassy movie, or it's a movie you associate with Christmas because it was always on at Christmas time, or you first saw it then.
I will tell you mine quickly now, because I'll be in the chat next week. But my favourite is Santa Claus. But it's the one that's got Dudley Moore playing Patch the Elf.
Oh, man, I remember that one.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the Superman the movie, Santa Claus. The same guys that made that, yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I loved that film so much when I was little that I went to, I never forget this, a birthday party in the middle of July when I was about 6, dressed as Patch, and my mum made the outfit out of crepe paper. In the middle of July, I'm going as a Christmas elf. It says everything about me.
Perfect. Nobody would ever suspect.
No, not at all. Well, it should be a fun show. We're about to double up on some, and I'm assuming one of us will probably pick That's a Wonderful Life, so it wouldn't be much of a spoiler to put that there. Maybe.
Should I just leave it out and say it's amazing? It's one of my favorites, and just choose some ones that nobody would ever suspect? I've got another one on my list that's James Stewart, so...
Okay, you could go that way.
Save it.
That way we won't double up on it.
All of them are James Stewart, as a matter of fact.
Are they all James Stewart? No, one of them is Charles Bronson.
I think he only did 2 Christmas movies.
Yep. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
What was his other one?
Shop Around the Corner, which would be remade
course.
into...
That's a Christmas movie, isn't it?
I love that movie.
Yeah. Okay, that's going to be a fun show. So everybody, please join us next Thursday for this. So once again, Charlie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
And Statto, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's us. Still don't have any kind of like smooth way out of this. Need to think of something for season 2. But other than that, it's just thanks for joining us. Good night.